Hey beautiful people, this video is about strategy execution framework. So I have a number of videos in this series that talk about strategy execution, that talk about strategy frameworks, and talk about execution frameworks. And what I want to do in here is introduce you to a framework that brings a different way of thinking about both execution and strategy. And the reason why I think this is important is that frameworks actually help you see things differently, and they introduce new thinking and new ideas in a way that I have found to be very effective for my learning. So hopefully for you, this also works. And I think wherever you can find a framework, you can kind of set things up. I always look at it like I'm sort of framing a picture, or I'm framing a photograph that I want to take. And it allows me to be able to sort of draw a line around what it is I'm trying to accomplish. It allows me to be able to see what are the major parts of what it is I'm trying to produce. And it gives me different light, different interpretation, different way of looking at things. I want to go beyond the idea of cascading goals, which is used many times in building strategy. And I want to help you learn the executional mechanics that turn strategy into reality across every level. So many times when we're doing strategy execution, we get the sign off at the executive level. They're the ones who've been an integral part of building the strategy. They're all happy with the strategy, and then the deal is roll the strategy out. And many times rolling the strategy out really is about communicating the strategy. And unfortunately, communicating the strategy is only maybe 10% of the work that needs to be done. The actual building that strategy into the day-to-day operation of the company is the execution piece that is incredibly hard to do and painstaking, and requires that people learn new practices and learn new ways of thinking about things and adapt and adjust. What I have found is human beings are remarkably good at adapting and adjusting, even though we have spent lots of time, particularly in the change management industry, people have spent a lot of time recognizing that there's change resistance and that people don't want to change, and a lot of change management projects have to do with dealing with the people who don't want to change and getting the right level of engagement. I have found over the years that if I'm helping people build new capacity that gives them more autonomy and more ability to be able to contribute to their peers, and more ability to be able to enjoy their work, and more ability to be able to deal with the frustrations that they inevitably experience at work, if I'm giving them capacity to be able to do that, they're a lot less resistant to change than you might expect them to be. When I run working sessions on this work, I will go into a group and I will say to them, hey, okay, so who came into work today and got incredibly frustrated? And pretty much the whole room will put up their hands. Or this week and got incredibly frustrated. Pretty much the whole room will put up their hands. And then I say, okay, who came into work today with the express intention of pissing everybody else off? And everybody will laugh, because what they'll see in there is they'll see that that's not something they do, and yet they know that they come into work and they get frustrated and pissed off. That means somebody is frustrating and pissing them off. But if nobody came in with the intention to do that, then that probably means that nobody did it on purpose. And if nobody did it on purpose, therefore that means that the system is probably broken. So my experience and my belief and my practice is that we work in a system that is broken. We work in a system that was designed for working on a factory floor with people who had zero to very, very little education. We're built our understanding of what is work on an understanding of what it means to assemble a Model T Ford. We're doing things now that are so much more sophisticated, so much more advanced, so much more complex, requiring so much more agility, and requiring very, very specific levels of knowledge in very small niche areas, where we are relying on people to actually be able to create and co-invent and build an shared understanding together, and build an understanding of each other's mastery, and respect each other's mastery, and leverage each other's mastery. So when we start thinking about strategy execution, and we start thinking about how should we go about implementing strategy, we have to think about how we design the execution layer. In the absence of designing the execution layer, what we're doing is we are moving the deck chairs on the Titanic. We're doing another reorg. And every time we do a reorg, we know that it very rarely produces the results that we're looking for. If instead we think about the execution layer as something that we can understand and design, and we think about execution capacity as a capacity we want to grow in our people, the same way we would grow leadership capacity, the same way we would grow mathematical ability. What we want to be able to do is build execution capacity as something that gives people an understanding of what the execution layer does, how it works, how their colleagues work, how they themselves work, how they can change the way they work, how they can change the way other groups work. And what that'll do is it'll put us in a position where we can begin to help people have a lot more autonomy around how the organization is run. We have so much untapped potential in our organizations, and yet most leaders that I speak to will say that they are short on resources and they're overextended. Of course they are, because they're working in a system that is fundamentally broken. If we move from understanding work as being input, process, output, or assembly line work, to work as being human beings having conversations to design together what value really means and to help each other deliver on that value, we now move into an environment where we can begin to design for that capacity to be able to work in networks of commitments that add value for customers, both internal and external. As we do that, what we start seeing is that strategy execution is really all about the execution layer. It's really all about our ability to be able to co-invent and co-create and deliver value for each other. If we use strategy as our context for why it is that we're doing that in the first place, if we use strategy and bake it into the metrics of our execution, if we use strategy and bake it into the purpose of our execution, what we're doing is we're setting ourselves up for a much, much higher level of success. If we move away from the idea that strategy and execution are about communication, and we move into the idea that says it's strategy and execution of strategy is actually about human coordination, building and designing networks of commitments, building an execution layer that has metrics and standards that are coherent and make sense for people, building context for people that allows them to be able to see why they're doing what they're doing and where it adds value into the system. What we do then is we build ourselves as master observers of the execution layer, and we build the people on our teams and the people who are part of executing on the strategy, which is the whole company effectively. We build their understanding of the execution layer. They become agents of change within the organization in a way that is much more aligned with the strategy and much more valuable in terms of use of their intelligence. As you start thinking about a strategy execution framework, and if some of what I've talked about resonates with you or makes sense to you, I'd love you to have a look at a free resource that I have for you, which is called Execution by Design. It's a white paper that I've written around this idea that if we are able to design our execution layer and we build execution capacity inside our company, we're going to position ourselves to be able to deliver on strategy much more effectively. It's available on my website as a free resource. It's downloadable from there. It is called Execution by Design. It's www.jenniferkenny.com/execution, and there's a link to it down in the comments below. As you start looking at how you execute your strategy more effectively and what frameworks you want to use, really encourage you to start looking at your execution layer and think of it both as a vehicle for getting the work done and also as a capacity that you want to build inside your organization. As you do this, I hope your strategy works out very effectively, and I hope your execution layer builds progressively more value into the company over time. And I wish you the very best of luck with it. Take care.